Well, it turns out Justin Trudeau abused his power, abused the power of the government, violated the Constitution, illegally used intelligence to spy on, freeze the bank accounts of his own citizens, according to a federal court in Canada. This is monumental. Tucker Carlson also invaded Canada last night to a massive sellout crowd and has been making ripples across that country, destroyed the prime minister in his speech last night, calling him out over systemic anti-Christian hate in Canada, among other things. Listen.
I'm telling you this because there's kind of no more inoffensive and peaceful group in the world than the Christians. In fact, there isn't. The religion tells them, commands them to turn the other cheek and to put the concerns of others above their own concerns. So if you have a problem with those precepts, explain it to me. Speak slowly so I can understand. I think every person in this room, regardless of your faith, can agree, yeah, I'm for that. I wish I was more like that. That's good. We need more of those people in society. Serve others for the sake of service. People who pray for their enemies. Who does that? Who would pray for an enemy? No one, except the Christians, and they do. They're commanded to. So if you're hassling that group, maybe you've got another agenda that we should be concerned about, even if we're not in that group. If we burn 90 of their churches to the ground, and the Prime Minister and his little weird buddies are endorsing that, burning churches, if you're on the side of burning churches, let me just say, I don't need any other facts of the case, you're on the wrong side.
He also mocked Trudeau and said he'd love to have him take a 23andMe test to see if he's really Fidel Castro's son down there in Cuba.
But he will collapse under the weight of his own ludicrousness and go back to Cuba or do whatever he does. But, what? You know, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's just too great to check. Though if I ever meet him, I'm going to demand a 23andMe, like right away.
Joining me now is Canadian journalist David Krayden, who's been tracking and writing extensively about Trudeau's criminal behavior and the abuse of power of the government there in Canada. And David joins us now. David, welcome to the show.
Nice to be back, Clayton.
So I want to get your take first on this federal court ruling, and then we'll talk some Tucker here in a moment. Is this as big a deal as we think it is, that the federal court comes down and says the Trudeau government here has violated the Constitution and basically abused the power of the government to go after Canadian citizens?
It is, as you said, it's monumental because it represents a rift in the Canadian establishment, the deep state in Canada. The judiciary is clearly not going to back Justin Trudeau when he does something that's clearly unconstitutional. And federal court justice Richard Mosley stated this week that the invocation of the Emergencies Act to suppress the Freedom Convoy, the trucker protest, was unreasonable, in quotation marks, was unjustified, and was unconstitutional, that he went way beyond his reach as a government, that there was no national emergency, there was no reason to invoke this draconian and authoritarian law. And this is absolutely incredible, because this is the second time in a couple of months that a federal court has said Trudeau has gone too far. They said so in December over the plastics policy, the single-use plastics policy. Now they're saying he went too far with the Emergencies Act. And this is galvanizing supporters of people who say enough of Justin Trudeau from a lot of different political movements, a lot of different political parties. But it certainly is helping conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who supported the Freedom Convoy initially, kept supporting that Freedom Convoy, has been under tremendous pressure by woke politicians in his own party to go against that Freedom Convoy. But this has justified his courage in saying they were right and Trudeau was wrong. And so this is a huge, huge decision.
Let's talk about some of the specifics of this decision and looking at specifically the disinformation to invoke the Emergencies Act, so that the government, Canadian government, used fake information, disinformation to invoke using the Emergencies Act. And then we'll get into sharing that information, spying on your own citizens, and then sharing it with the other Five Eyes nations. I mean, to me, that is treasonous. That is treasonous behavior. So let's talk about the disinformation. What types of disinformation was Trudeau putting out, invoking to use and then clamp down on power and clamp down on these truckers?
Well, for the viewers who aren't aware of the Five Eyes, those are the great English-speaking democracies, the bulwark of freedom in the world: United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And they routinely share information. Well, it seems that they routinely share disinformation as well, and they are actively working against populist movements, small C conservatives, libertarians, anybody opposing this globalist agenda. And what kind of disinformation were they sharing? Well, where have you heard this before? These populists are really white supremacists. They're really Nazis. They're really working for far right organizations. This kind of information was out there immediately in January 2022 when the Freedom Convoy descended upon Ottawa. Justin Trudeau immediately started equating the Freedom Convoy protesters to Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
There was talk of Hitler. There was talk of these people being far right extremists, white supremacists. The same kind of language that you hear Joe Biden using against people in the United States who are opposed to his policies. When he uses the Justice Department and the FBI against school board parents who don't like critical race theory, when he uses the judiciary to persecute former President Donald Trump. This is the same kind of language that these people, anyone who opposes these globalist inspired governments, are somehow far right Nazis and white supremacists. White supremacists under every bed. And this was the information that immediately came forth when the Freedom Convoy started, and Justin Trudeau started using that language almost immediately. They were misogynistic. They were racist. These people were a fringe element. Once again, these are all buzzwords that are being shared amongst the Five Eyes, and it's all disinformation.
Right. And Michael Schellenberger, a journalist, also pointing out that through his publication, Public, that they discovered specific instances of where the government was using fake intelligence to illegally frame these protesting truckers. In fact, we highlighted here a number of months ago putting up fake white supremacist signs on poles and on trucks using Nazi symbolism and things like that, which were totally fake, that the government was using and fake and repurposing this information that didn't even exist in order to frame these protesters. Can you speak a little bit more about that? And this, I don't know if any of this came up in that, of course, some of the court cases that you've been sitting in on, watching unfold.
Well, just like the January 6th insurrection fraud, and that's really what it was, and I think we all know that now, there was no insurrection. There was a lot of arrests of people who just happened to be standing around. And these people are still languishing in prison. The same case is happening here in Canada. We have people who were arrested during the Freedom Convoy protest, not just in Ottawa, but at the Coutts, Alberta border crossing. We got 4 members of that protest group that are still languishing in jail. And for what? We're not even sure what they're accused of. The RCMP claimed that they arrested 13 people who had firearms and explosives at the site. There's ample evidence now that this cache of firearms wasn't even seized at the border. It had nothing to do with these Coutts protesters. The RCMP, the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the Ottawa Police all claimed that the Ottawa protesters had firearms. This information was out there from day one, that these people had guns, that they had an arsenal, that they were planning some kind of insurrection. Where do you hear that one? Against the government. There wasn't a single explosive, a single bomb, a single gun or firearm found in Ottawa at all. And what makes this even more bizarre is that Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, a very draconian measure. It used to be called the War Measures Act, after the problems at the border were resolved. So it was completely aimed at the peaceful protest in Ottawa. And as soon as that order was invoked on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2022, the police brutally put down this peaceful protest. I was there to witness it. And finally, we have a judge in Canada who's saying not only was this improper, not only should a democratic government not be beating up its citizens for disagreeing with the government, but this is completely based on myth. It was completely based on disinformation. There was no national emergency. And no matter what Chrystia Freeland wants to keep pretending, and Justin Trudeau, by the way, hasn't even had the guts to come out publicly and comment on this issue. He puts his little deputy prime minister, finance minister out there to defend the government, but he hasn't got the moxie or the guts to go out and publicly comment on this when a judge has told him he's gone way over his authority.
Well, and of course, you have a grandmother, 62-year-old grandmother, who was like strip searched, ripped apart. Says the lies that the Trudeau government has been pushing has been, it's been total lies, that they planted this cache of weapons. And of course, you have the arrests of these men who have now, I think, been in prison for over 700 days without any reason. They've not given them any due process at this point. They've been languishing in prison, right? It's unbelievable.
And we have a Métis woman who was literally trampled by a police horse and had a shoulder dislocated. Now, I've talked to Candace many times about this, and I correspond with her from time to time. Now, what about all of these people? This is another unanswered question. What about all of these people who had physical harm upon them because of the police action? What about the people who had bank accounts frozen as a result of this action and who had financial dislocation? What about this huge lawsuit against Freedom Convoy? Is this all null and void now? I think it should be.
Yeah, and when will Justin Trudeau be removed from office? Because there's plenty of Canadians that are saying, you thought the trucker convoy protests were bad. Wait until if Trudeau doesn't leave office or be removed from office, the protests are going to be much larger than that. And of course, they will use these same tactics in the United States over the next week to 2 weeks. As this massive trucker convoy is heading to the U.S. southern border, liberal media will call them racists. They'll call them white supremacists. And of course, I guarantee you we'll see some of the same similar action that we saw on January 6th. You'll see sort of an invasion of these groups. You'll see people with white hoods walking around with their masks fully over their face, and we'll know exactly where those individuals come from. And all you need to do is look to Canada. Before I let you go, I do want to talk about Tucker Carlson. So, huge event last night. He beforehand made a joke calling Justin Trudeau's office before his arrival, saying we're coming to restore liberty, we're coming to liberate Canada, and we're on our way. Please let the Prime Minister know. And it was a huge speech last night. It was a packed house, and he really took some big shots at Trudeau, specifically on like Christian persecution in Canada, among other things. How was it received there in Canada?
Well, from those who were there, it was a moment in time they'll never forget, because Tucker, of course, is completely honest. He's not afraid to say things that a lot of Canadian media are afraid to say. I'm not one of them, but are. Right. And he's unapologetic. And he went after, of course, the comment about Justin Trudeau's possible connection to Fidel Castro. It's been a rumor from day one that his real father is Fidel Castro. A lot of journalists are even afraid to say that, but it's all over. It's been all over social media for the last 8 years. And Tucker, of course, mentioned that he made a lot of jokes about Justin Trudeau that would be considered beyond the pale by our very timid press corps here in Canada. But this is exactly what is needed. We need people like Tucker Carlson to shake up this establishment in Canada, to shake up a press corps that is often afraid to comment about reality, to be quite truthful about this, and is very afraid to go after Justin Trudeau. For whatever reason, this is a wounded politician, and with this decision this week, he is more in danger than ever of being forgotten and being completely marginalized as a leader. And this is something we can't forget. So Tucker was a hit. You can look at the social media response in Canada. It was tremendous. And people really appreciated this visit.
Well, it was great to watch a lot of the chunks of the speech. So I know I know it was very well received from what I saw, and Justin Trudeau should be shaking in his boots, because I think in this speech plus this court ruling this week, this is an electric shock to the Canadian people. So, we stand with the Canadian people on this, and we hope that they manage to get this guy out of office as soon as possible. David Krayden, thank you so much. As always, great to see you up there in Canada, and we will talk real soon. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Clayton.
Don't take the bait. Freedom convoy, this is what we state. Enough of the mandates. We decide our own fate. We are freedom fighters all the way. Oh Canada, oh Canada. Freedom convoy 2022. We're the Freedom Convoy 2022.
That's what unity is all about. Taking care of our fellow Canadians. Peace, love, and happiness.
Gonna save this is through peace and love, my brother. You know that and you feel that in your heart, so please spread the word to all the other people who do not have it in theirs. This is only about peace and love. It's about unity, and it's not about the divide. This is about us getting together and forget the two sides. This is about love.
They have been an incredible group of individuals who've kept this city safe during a situation that could have become riotous. It could have led to significant and severe injuries, and it could have led to the loss of life. None of that has occurred over the last 4 days. Let me repeat. No injuries, no deaths, no riots in the last 4 days in the nation's capital, despite the fact that we have a global cause, national protest, tens of thousands of individuals from a wide variety of causes who have gathered to actively demonstrate 24 hours a day for the last 4 days. All of that coupled with thousands of heavy trucks, SUVs, and cars driving into the city and congregating in the core of this city, 24 hours a day for 4 days a week.
Okay, so here's the book today. So what we can see is that there's no more Pierre Trudeau. I took off the page because it was a kind of curse of when maybe I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago when I found the book. So I was so that means that we were face to face. Myself, Pierre Girard, here, at the age of about 15 years old, à l'âge de 15 ans. Et puis, and here, on the page here, it was Pierre Trudeau, and with a quite special face. So it's the book. It's a kind of, I don't know how to say that, it's Terre d'Avenir, it means land of future. So, land of future, that means maybe that, I took up Pierre Trudeau from being face to face with him. So maybe we need to took up Justin Trudeau. So, maybe it's a good idea. So, here you go. Canada.